Hey guys, welcome to Happy Hour with Raj. As usual, I'm here with an amazing guest. And this week I have the ultra amazing Morgan Berry with us. Big hand for Morgan. Yay, Morgan.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you here this week. So usually I don't do a lot of the talking because I interview a lot of musicians and voice actors. And let me tell you, musicians, voice actors know how to talk for a long time. So I kind of sit back and let you tell us about. I'm going to let you tell us about yourself because that's what people are interested in. So Morgan, tell us about yourself. How'd you get into voice acting? Let's start with that.
Hey guys. Yeah, I'm a voice actor living in Los Angeles, and I voice in a lot of anime and video games and web series, and I quite enjoy it. I got into voiceover after winning a voice acting competition, actually. But I've been acting for about 17 years now. A
Wow.
lot of on camera, a little bit of a lot of on stage, and a little bit of on camera. There we go.
Okay.
And I stumbled into voice over after winning a competition because Todd Habercorn was holding a voice acting contest at a convention. And
I know
the
Todd.
prize, if you won the competition, was an audition at Funimation Entertainment, which is
Right.
biggest distributor of anime. And so I competed in the competition and I won. And that was my first time ever doing voiceover, ever. But I had acting experience prior to it, so I was ready for it when that opportunity presented itself. So I won, and through that, I got my first audition at Funimation. and they just kept sending me auditions from there. I started booking, and here I am.
And now you're living in Los Angeles, right?
Yes. Mhm.
But Funimation is in Texas, correct? Did you come from Texas and then
I
come to
did,
Los
yes,
Angeles?
I came from
Okay.
Texas.
So
Yeah.
talk about your transition because I have so many voice actor friends who've stayed in Texas and they've just said like I'm going to stay there and continue my career. But some people migrate to LA and deal with that completely different situation, right? So tell us about the difference between the Texas voice acting and the LA voice acting.
Cool. Well, I started my voiceover career in Texas, and I would say there's 3 major studios in Texas:
Hmm.
Funimation, Gearbox Software,
Hmm.
and Sentai Filmworks.
Okay.
Gearbox is in Frisco, Texas. Funimation is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area,
Hmm.
and uh, Sentai Filmworks is in Houston. Did I already say that? No.
Uh, no, you didn't. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the Frisco, Dallas, and Houston. There we go. And I decided to make the transition in like officially in 2020 because uh, I started flying out to LA for classes. I
Hmm.
wanted to learn from professionals who were consistently working in the voiceover industry. And so
Right.
I would fly out from Texas to LA just for classes. And
Hmm.
every once in a while I actually booked a gig, which was really cool. And so I started booking, and
Uh-huh.
I would fly back and forth for classes and
Wow.
gigs. And yeah, and it wasn't too bad. But at the time I wasn't I thought about moving, but
Hmm.
I I was fine in Texas. I was getting a lot of work in Texas, and I was in a relationship, and
Oh,
that significant other was not they didn't wanna move, you
right.
know? So I was honestly, I thought about staying in Texas, but the more my career picked up, I
Mhm.
was like, "You know what? I eventually wanna make the move."
Yeah.
And then the breakup happened. I had it was my first breakup in my entire life.
No.
Yeah, yeah. This was my first relationship ever. And so having a breakup after a year of being together, I was like, oh, heartbroken. So after that, I was like, all right, this was my main reason for staying in Texas was I was doing all right and I was in a relationship. So once that relationship was like
Mhm.
done, I was like, okay, it's time for me to actually move. So in like 2020, that's when I was like, okay, this is it. Settling down in LA for good.
And what do you think of LA?
Oh, I love it. I love it. Unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to explore because right when I moved out here, that's when the pandemic happened.
Mhm.
So I haven't really gotten the chance to explore yet, but I like it so far. The only thing I don't like is the traffic.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big change from living in Texas for sure, right? Because there's no traffic, right, in Texas or very
I mean, there's traffic, but it's definitely not as bad as LA, and the drivers here are crazier.
yeah, I know. I mean, I live up here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I go to LA quite regularly, and to me, it's just stunning how anybody can deal with that. It's actually faster for me to get on a flight here and get to Burbank, and fly to Burbank and catch a cab to a studio than it is to drive from the valley sometimes, right? To
It's true though. Yeah. It's ridiculous. It's crazy.
right.
Absolutely insane.
And is it possible for voice actors to make a living in Texas? I know I'm not sure how that if that would really work. For do people make a living just from being in Texas and voice acting, or is it more of a side hustle in Texas?
As a voiceover actor, if you have an agent and you receive a lot of auditions and book a lot of those auditions, then it's possible, especially if you book a lot of commercial work.
Right,
But I don't really do commercials. I do mostly anime and a few video games here and there whenever the auditions come in.
right.
But anime doesn't pay well. So you're definitely going to need a day job if you are planning to just pursue anime in Texas. You're going to need another job.
Right. And so is that something that you fell into because of the audition that you got into anime, and or is it just something you were passionate about anime and that's what you wanted to do, and that's why you kind of went into the anime direction?
I honestly didn't have a goal with voiceover. I didn't have a specific goal in mind. If I'm being completely honest, I didn't know what the contest would entail. I had no idea. I
Mhm.
loved anime. I still love anime. I've loved anime since I was a kid.
Mhm.
So to be able to act and pair that with anime is just really cool to me. But that wasn't my goal from the start because I didn't even consider it a possible job. I knew voiceover was a thing, I knew anime dubbing was a thing, but I never thought of myself. I never imagined myself being able to do that. For some reason, it just never occurred to me until it happened.
Really? Okay, so you were planning to be an actress then? Is that what you were sort
Actress and singer, because
Wow.
I used to be in a girl band, and I will not tell you what they were called because I don't want to bring up that past because
Okay.
trauma and all. But there was good and bad, but it's just that's definitely something I want to leave in the past, that band in particular. But I used to be in an all-girl band, and we traveled and we sang and danced, and
Oh, okay. And you did all the girl band moves and everything.
basically, yeah.
Really?
All the
That
band moves.
that is too awesome. That's too awesome. And so is the singing still happening for you? Are you still pursuing the singing? Is it kind of in tandem with the voice acting, or is one more important to you? Or how do you sort of put the because I'm a singer too. I
Yeah.
started off singing.
Well, I still love it, but I've put it on hold for voiceover right now.
Okay.
I used to do a lot of song covers
Mhm.
on my YouTube channel,
Okay.
and that took off pretty nicely, but it just got expensive, and voiceover was doing more for me financially, and so I decided to put music on hold and pursue voiceover. But music will come. I will put out more original music eventually, and I will do more song covers eventually.
Mhm.
But right now, I have to focus on what pays the bills.
No, it's totally understand, and you're very fortunate because it is paying the bills for you. You're in demand. You're doing
I'm
a lot
so
of
thankful. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna vent a sec.
yes, yes.
This is the first time in my life that I'm financially stable. Because and I know it's the pandemic, which is just it's crazy that I mean, it all kind of started in 2019. I did a lot of convention appearances, I booked a lot of work, and so that kind of prepared me for 2020 when no con appearances happened.
Yes.
So and
Mhm.
that's like, a lot of the times for voice actors in anime, convention appearances are our main income because anime does not pay well.
Right,
And
right.
so when 2020 happened, no conventions, so it was like, oh, but at least I had savings to hold me over and I still had work coming in. So I had something and I was good. But all that to say,
Mhm.
I'm more financially stable than I've ever been because
Wow.
I left my previous job to pursue voiceover.
This
And
is
what I did before was I was a performing arts teacher,
oh, wow.
without a degree, mind you. I don't have a degree. I've never gone to college for teaching, education or, you know, th- yeah, I don't.
Studied
But
it.
I taught what I learned within that organization.
Okay.
Uh, and looking back on it now, I'm like, "Ugh, I don't think anyone there was qualified to teach, but whatever." They weren't. But I was one of them though. And I taught what I knew. And I taught, choir, acting, dance,
Wow.
I, everything. We taught those kids how to be a triple threat, in the performing arts industry. And I enjoyed it. I really did. I loved those kids. Like we taught kids from ages ranging from like 4 to 17,
Amazing.
all of that. And so it was a lot. We put on live shows and I directed and I cast for some of the plays. I was the main acting teacher. Sometimes I would choreograph dances, write songs, write scripts for the company.
Wow.
Now, I learned a lot. I got a lot out of it and I enjoyed what I did. I
Right.
really did. But I okay. So here's the thing.
Mhm.
I was there every single day. I
Right.
kid you not. I worked every day.
Oh,
No, yeah, I'm not kidding.
oh my God.
Day, whether it was teaching classes, running rehearsals, putting on a production, like a live production. I traveled with them, and that girl band I was with was a part of the organization.
Mhm.
So I was literally always working. I want you to guess how much I was getting paid each month. I was getting paid, but I want you to guess how much. I was working well over 40 hours.
Well, so let's see. So that you'd probably, I mean, you should be getting, I mean, I would guess for teaching $30 an hour or something like that. $30 an hour for teaching? No?
Paid by the hour.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I don't know. 4,000 a month?
This are what?
3,000 a month?
I wish! Oh, I wish!
Hey,
No! I was
what?
getting paid 300 a month.
What?
Yeah, I'm gonna call them out. They were called the Christian Performing Arts Center in
Oh,
Texas, Keller, Texas. Yeah, I'm calling them out. Yeah, I am. I'm only a few drinks in and I'm already spilling tea.
okay.
Real.
What?
I'm pretty sure they're out of business because of some really, some intense allegations.
Wow.
But if they ever prop back up, we gonna shut it down, like for real. Like they took advantage of their employees, and they
Awesome.
were, emotionally abusive and
Gosh.
spiritually abusive too, because they were a Christian, you know,
Right.
company.
Right. Yes.
But it was toxic. It was such a toxic environment, and I'm so glad to be out of it. Like it was very culty. It was very culty. And so yeah, I'm glad that part of my life is over. But anyways, it was like I it was all I ever knew though. I started as a student there, and then I, became a teacher there. And so I kind of grew up in that system since
Right.
I was 14.
Wow.
And 7 years later, I think I left about 7 years later. Um, and that situation was crazy. Even me leaving was crazy. No one ever leaves that company on a good note. That's not a good sign of,
No.
that's not on the people leaving, that is on the company.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And so I remember during that transition, I'm a Christian. I'm still a Christian. I'm still a believer, even with my horrible experiences with the church and with Christian organizations, I'm still a believer. So at my transition out, I was thinking like, all right, God, where next? like I felt like I needed to leave even before I left. I was like, okay, my transition needs to happen soon. Where am I going to go to next? And then, boom, the voice acting competition that I ended up winning. That
Right.
kind of dropped into my lap, and I was like, all right. I prayed about it. I was like, all right, if this is what God wants for me, then I'm going to win the competition. Well, and if I don't win, then I'll assume that's not what I'm supposed to do with my life. Well, I won, and here I am. So that was a crazy transition in my life, going from having no money. I was living from paycheck to paycheck, literally, because rent was, I was splitting a duplex with my bandmates, and so it was like 350 each,
Mhm.
and it probably ended up being 400 each, actually, 400 each.
Mhm.
And I was only getting paid 300 a month. So imagine, there's also expenses like groceries and gas money, car insurance, medical bills.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
like I did not have that money. Like I don't know how I managed to survive each and every month. I needed help from my parents every now and then, which is not something I wanted to do, obviously. When I moved out, I wanted to be, independent. Like I thought I could do it because my boss told me I could. She said that she would be paying me enough. She never gave me a raise though, even though I was doing most of the work in the company. So that happened.
Mhm.
So yeah, once that transition, I won the competition. I started doing voiceover, and now I'm doing really well for myself. And I would love to just rub it in their faces, just rub it in my former boss's face and be like, hey, how are
We'll,
you doing? You don't even have enough money for retirement?
we'll send them a link. We'll send them a link right after this. We'll send it straight to them.
For real. I'll be like, hey, look how well I'm doing now.
Yeah.
For real, I'm so happy with where I am in my life. And oh my gosh, I can't even imagine where I would be if I hadn't have competed in that competition. I don't know where I would be today. It's kind of crazy.
Well, let's have a like a salute to that. A cheers to that. Okay. And you're drinking. What did you drink again? The White Russian.
I have both. I have two drinks. This is actually sake with edible glitter on the inside. Fancy.
Oh my God, it's amazing. Okay, I'm drinking red wine, and as a backup, I've got a Modelo Negro.
Nice. As my backup, I've got my White Russian. What up?
Oh, whoa, check it
Yes.
out. The White Russian and a black beer. Okay, we're in sync today. We're totally in sync.
Yeah, cheers to that.
Cheers, cheers. All right. it still stuns me to think that someone would think that to pay you a full-time job, $300 a month. What does that work out? 50 cents an hour or something ridiculous like that?
I started teaching, like, I joined when I was 14, and I started teaching, like, baby steps, though. I started teaching here and there when I was 16,
Right.
then, like, full time, like, at 17, because I joined that band when I was around 17, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that's when the work really started coming in, and
Yeah.
it was my first job. I didn't know what I was supposed to be getting paid for all that work. I had no idea. I was so naive. Like, I thought I could trust them. They were a Christian company, and I thought that my former boss was also the manager of the band I was in, and so I really thought I could trust her. I thought of her as another mother, you know? But once I left, my eyes were really opened to all that I was missing out on while
Mm.
I was with them for 7 years.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I've heard this story a lot of times from young singers and musicians that have gotten involved with, this kind of questionable groups that sort of take advantage of people's talent and don't want to compensate them for them or whatever, try to keep them in their organization. And it happens more often than I thought. I'm quite surprised. I hear this a lot actually from a lot of musicians, right? And it's kind of shocking and but it's not surprising because I mean, there are those kinds of people around, and you're lucky. The voiceover community in LA is a fantastic group of people, just the nicest people ever.
Sure. The voiceover community is so supportive and kind. Now, granted, if we're being realistic, there are a few people that are bad eggs. There's always a few bad eggs in any community.
Of
But for
course.
the most part, the voiceover community is so kind.
Yeah.
And honestly, out of all the areas of show business,
Mhm.
voiceover, I feel, is the most supportive and kind. And even the veterans, they're
Yeah.
all so great. I love this community. I really do.
It's interesting, and I mean, I should really like do some study into why, because I just hear this over and over and over again, and I think it's just fact. The community is awesome, and it's surprising because the entertainment industry can be so brutal in so many ways, right? It can be so harsh and so brutal and unfair to people, but the voiceover community is just really supportive, and there isn't this kind of work jealousy. I think it's just like more like trying to help people out and support people and
Right.
share, right? And so what do you think? Why? I mean, I'm curious as to why that's happening like that. You have any
I have a theory. A lot of on camera people, the on camera world is very dog eat dog. It's brutal.
hmm
Voiceover, a lot of the times, people don't really know who we are because our faces are not on screen. So a lot of the voiceover fans, the fans of voice actors, they really only know what we look like if they actively Google us or go to a convention. For the most part, I feel in voiceover, there's of course a level of competition because that's show business. We're all competing for roles, but it's not vicious competing
Right. It's
because like we don't put each other down. Not like in the on-camera world where everyone's being picked apart for their appearance, but in voiceover, people aren't like that. It's they're not shallow like the people in the on-camera
Is it
world.
because it's not so like you say it's not so appearance oriented? So
Yes, exactly. Yep.
that that's super is interesting. I mean, the music world is very very competitive, but I mean it's competitive for those who are trying to get ahead. But those who are very sincere about their music, I feel like the music world is very inclusive, and everybody wants to make music together because it's group oriented. So you
Yes.
you can't really be exclusive, right? Because it's so group oriented. You need the community, and only those people who know how to work with other people can thrive in that community. And maybe
Well,
that's the same thing. Yeah.
yeah, I feel that in on camera, people are more likely to feel threatened by others' careers.
Right.
I think appearance
hmm
has something to do with that.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah, that's really, really interesting. And so, coming from Texas, I grew up in Canada, and I lived half my life in Japan, and then I moved here to California, and I made a very definitive decision not to live in LA. I decided, well, I don't want to be in LA. I lived in Tokyo for 20 years, and it was enough living in a huge metropolitan city, and all the hassles that go with it. And so I wanted to be out in the countryside where I am, basically right now, up in wine country in the North Bay area. And so for me, I wonder how people make that transition. You've gone from Texas and how they feel about it, LA, and everyone has a different sort of take on it. Some people just love it and they thrive on the energy, and some people find it draining. Some people find it, I don't know, inspiring. What's your sort of what adjectives would you use about your experience in LA as a voice actress in particular?
That Yeah, honestly, all of that, because I consider myself an ambivert. So I'm both extrovert,
What's
introvert. I'm both. I really am. And so sometimes I thrive off that energy. I will
right?
go into big groups, with friends and just,
Mhm.
I do, however, prefer it to be with close friends. I don't like going clubbing, being
Right.
surrounded by people I don't know. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I'm not a partier. I'm the chillax
Oh.
kind of person. Like I would rather, I'm a homebody. I would rather stay at home,
Mhm.
watch anime, maybe play some video games, drink, have a drink, some snacks. That's my idea of fun. I
Okay.
don't go out much. I don't go hiking. I don't go running. I don't go camping. I don't do any of that adventurous stuff that a lot of Californians do. But
Okay.
it really, for the most part, though, I like the energy of LA. I really do. And I have a good community that I surround myself with, the voiceover community.
Okay.
So it's good energy that I'm around.
Okay. I mean, and so you're finding it's feeding you, right? It's giving you
Yeah,
good energy
I
and
feel like
feeding.
it is. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and that's fantastic. I mean, some people thrive on that kind of energy, and I think that every time I talk to different voice actors and I'm interviewing them, I find that they all have a different perspective on this. Some people have this where it's the energy in LA and the whole industry gives them inspiration to keep going and want to do more and more interesting, and then some people find that it's difficult for them to keep up or get into the flow of what's going on in LA, because it's definitely a different flow, right? The traffic and the studios and the auditioning, right, all the time. So how often do you audition every day too? That's one thing I keep asking people. Everyone's got a different audition flow. So what do you do? What's your flow every day? Because I know a lot of um, viewers, listeners out there want to know what a professional voice actor's flow is, because they want to know what should they be expecting when they hopefully hit your world, right?
Well, it really depends whether you have an agent or not. In the beginning of my career, auditions, I maybe got one audition a month for anime because that was what I was focusing on at the time. I didn't really have any video game opportunities coming my way because at first my only connection was Funimation.
Yeah.
So I might get an audition at once every month or, not. It
Mhm.
really depends on your studio connections and whether you have an agent or not.
Right.
And it also depends on how good of an agent you have as well. I know some people who get 15 auditions a day.
Wow. Okay. All
It's
right.
a little
Well,
insane.
do you mind talking about what like what would be in a typical day for you, maybe for people? You don't, if you're comfortable with that, what your typical day would be, like a couple of
Busy
hours
day.
auditioning. I don't,
Describing a busy day for me
yeah.
would be because I get auditions from a studio or from an agency in New York, and so they're 3 hours ahead, and sometimes I have to have an audition in by 9 a.m. their time. And sometimes my email doesn't load, and so I get an email like in the middle of the night, and I'm like, oh crap, I got to get this in within a few hours. Oh no! So sometimes I have to wake up like at 5 a.m. just to make sure that I can get auditions in if an audition comes in the middle of the night, because sometimes you get rush auditions,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
those are the ones you got to get in within the next few hours. So a busy day for me would be waking up early, 5 a.m. uh,
Whoa. 5 a.m.
recording maybe 5 auditions that morning, having a few sessions throughout the day, maybe two different recording sessions for two different studios maybe, and then planning my schedule for the rest of the week in case other sessions are scheduled through other studios,
Mhm.
and then doing more auditions later that night and then going to bed late. That's a busy day for me.
And you still get up at 5 a.m. and audition the next day.
I try.
Is this your sort of culture to get up at 5 a.m. and start?
I'm not a morning person. I hate mornings. I
Wow.
really don't like waking up early. If I could, I would sleep till noon, if I could. But I try to keep myself busy. I hustle to pay the bills because you have to.
You
Uh,
have
as a voice actor, you're a freelancer. You don't get insurance through
yeah.
a company. You don't. Unless you're in the union and you make enough, if you make like, what is it, 30,000? If you've made at least $30,000 in union gigs alone the past year, I believe that's the amount,
Something
then
like that.
you
Yeah.
get insurance the following year. That's kind of how it is with SAG-AFTRA, but hopefully they're probably not completely correct numbers, but you get where you get where I'm going with that. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
definitely do not make that much in union gigs alone. So I don't, even though I am a union actor,
Right.
so I don't have insurance. That's just the life of a freelance voice actor.
Right. And so maybe we could talk a little bit about the whole union thing. I think that a lot of people don't understand what the difference between a union actor and a non-union actor. Maybe you could clarify that for people and how that kind of works, or give.
I am not the best person to ask, but I can tell the basics. Basically, if you're in the union, you are allowed to do union gigs. That's really the only perk. If I'm being completely honest, I'm actually allowed to do union anime because I'm in the union.
Can you do union anime?
Yeah, and I guess that's as far as I will go with that because I'm not a big fan of SAG-AFTRA right now. I'm really not. I think there's a lot they can improve on.
Okay. All right.
And yeah. Also, membership is over $3,000.
Wow.
Yes,
Holy.
and you have to pay to stay in the union every year. So not 3,000 every year. The first initial membership payment is 3,000, and then each following year you have to pay a couple hundred to stay in.
Mhm.
And it's not always worth it for some voice actors. Some voice actors make way more on non-union gigs than
Right.
they ever do with union. And so for a lot of voice actors, it's not financially worth it.
Yeah.
Especially if they don't have an agent and they don't receive union auditions.
Okay.
But I digress. I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay. And so working with agents, I mean, is it different? You when you're in Texas, you've got a different agent for Texas, and then a different agent for
You can have an agent in different states.
okay.
You can have one in Texas, New York, and LA. Um, and it's really not that much different. I think for me, the only difference is when the audition is coming in from a studio.
Right.
If you miss the deadline and don't send it they don't hit you up and say, "Hey, when are you going to turn in this audition?" They don't do that at studios. If you miss out an audition, you miss out. But
Right.
with an agency, they make money when you make money.
Yes.
They take a percentage from your payment if you book a gig. So they want to make money, so they hit you up and they're like, "Hey,
Why haven't you? Yeah.
yeah, why haven't you auditioned? Where's your audition? You're late." So I think that's the only difference that I've experienced is when there's an audition that I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm not good with commercials.
Okay.
I mean, actually, I feel like I could be. But I don't want to.
Okay.
Commercials aren't really fun for me. I can do it well. I really do think I can, but I don't. It's just not my thing, and I don't. Commercials pay well, they do, but I
Yeah.
don't really need the money, and so I'm just like, I don't want to. There's a lot of times I don't want to audition for the commercials they send me,
Right.
but they'll hit me up and be like, "Hey, you gotta turn this in. We wanna get paid, and
Right. I mean,
what do you do?" And so I'm just like, okay, and so sometimes I have to audition for those gigs that I really don't care for. I
Right.
think that's the only difference.
And so I'd like to ask you some questions about being a woman in the industry too. And nowadays, it's so diverse, and there's so many different kinds of people in the voiceover space. And as a woman, what experience do you have for other women out there who want to get into voice acting? What is your experience, and what wisdom, deep word, wisdom, can you pass on to them in terms of getting into this industry and keep it? You seem so grounded, and you're doing so well. What kind of nuggets of knowledge can you pass on to people?
In all honesty, in my own experience, it's not much different.
Oh,
No,
okay.
being a woman and being a man, I don't really feel that in my experience, I
Right.
haven't felt a difference in climbing the ladder of voiceover. But I'm gender fluid,
Okay.
so that could also be the reason. Maybe I just don't see it, and it's there and I just don't see it. But for me, I feel like the journey is similar no matter what gender you are.
Right. Right.
What makes it different is whether you're in the LGBTQ community
Hmm.
or you're not white. That
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
because there is racism,
Oh.
and there
Yeah.
is homophobia in
Yep.
the industry, and we're kind of trying to root it out, but it's still there. So that's definitely an issue in the voiceover industry itself. And it's not everyone. It's just some studios. Some studios, and that's definitely something I could get into. Uh,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
but I'm bisexual and I'm gender fluid,
Okay.
and I have a friend who is very out about their
Hmm.
sexuality, and
Hmm.
they stopped getting roles. They stopped getting auditions, I should say. They stopped getting auditions because the director they
And they really, really.
they had assumptions, I suppose,
What
stupid
matter?
assumptions.
Why does it matter? Why
Yeah,
does
and it's so stupid.
it matter?
So
Yeah.
and I won't get too much into that because that's not my story to tell.
Right.
But that is an issue in this industry sometimes. So that is where I think that is the problem,
Mhm.
that needs to be fixed is racism and homophobia.
That's really interesting. I mean, it's really refreshing to hear that there's an industry out there that doesn't have overt sexism,
Mm.
and that, because these are kind of things that, I mean, it's one stumbling block, and of course the racism and the homophobia is another stumbling block. And yeah, as a colored person, I've experienced so much of it too in the industry. It's actually shocking sometimes, and you go like, what? And you just can't. It's hard to believe. It's hard to even digest, because what does it matter when you're behind a mic anyway, right?
Right. To
What
be
does
fair,
it
though, to be fair, I myself have not experienced sexism.
matter?
There could be other people out there in this industry that have. I just myself have not experienced it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not hearing that either. I'm hearing what you're saying, that there's more of there's a racist sort of angle to a lot of, people in the industry, and racist tendencies, and there's also some homophobic tendencies, which doesn't make sense in any way, shape, or form at all. It's completely irrelevant, especially when you don't see anybody on camera. So what does
Exactly.
it matter?
It
What does
is.
it matter? You know?
Everyone should at least receive the audition that fits their voice.
Yeah.
The
Right.
audition, at least the opportunity to audition.
Right. Right.
Now, whether they book the role or not, that's up to the casting director. But they should at least receive the opportunity to
Right.
for those characters, even
Right.
if the character doesn't look like them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's really interesting that the industry is just now catching up with that concept. And
Right? They're just now realizing it's a problem.
yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's insane, but it's just one of those.
Been ignoring it this whole time. And then
I,
finally, some people spoke out about it, and then the BLM movement happened, and finally, people are speaking up, and now action is happening.
it's on the horizon. I mean, there's a whole BIPOC movement. I mean, this has come up in a few different episodes, and I had a talk with a good buddy of mine who's one of the top composers in America, game composers. He's black, and we just have this conversation all the time. And he says, he said that that people's image of a composer is a white dude with a beard and a cat. Which I was like, and then I actually thought about that. I'm like, whoa, wait a second. And I was like, yeah, it's actually true. There's this, I was like, wow. I mean, it is something that this perception of what people should be like, what they should look like, this perception of, and so, like a lot of people, that people are trying to break down boundaries these days and have be more inclusive, and it's really interesting that you're noticing that as well, and it seems to be a common thread with a lot of voice actors. They're saying that there has to be more inclusion, more diversity in the industry as well, and more, I guess, more spice, right? In general, more spice out there.
Diversity, that's very important. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us, like, right now, you're obviously on this great sort of trajectory where people love you, and I just get so many great compliments about you, and then I just first time I've met you, and I'm getting compliments about you from people. But I know people have got some questions for you out there. So are you open to take some questions from people tonight? Is that cool?
Yes. I'm very open to taking.
Okay. All right, guys. We got some time for some questions out there. We talked about how you got into the industry in general, but I think some people want to know, what do you do on a daily basis to train for yourself? Like, what is your training methodology?
I have trained with a lot of veterans in the voiceover industry.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important to choose your coaches wisely because there's a lot of scams out there. And
Oh,
you guys, if y'all want a list, if y'all want to know who to go to and who to not go to, please contact me through my website, themorganberry.com.
okay.
Contact me and ask me. I will tell you who to avoid because there's a lot of scams out there. And I want to help you in your journey. I want to help you. So, anyways, I have trained with so many people who I knew specialized in animation VO because that's what I wanted to pursue, animation and video game VO.
Okay.
That's one factor in choosing the correct coach for you. So
Mm-hmm.
I have trained with, so many people. Where do I even begin? I have a list. There's Richard Horvitz,
Okay.
Aaron Fitzgerald, Debbie Derryberry, Dave Fenoy, Philip
Oh,
Bach,
I know Dave. Yeah.
like, and there's more. I've like a lot. I could rattle on.
We didn't catch the last two. After Dave Fenoy, the other two just didn't come through. What were the last two?
Let's see.
Dave Fenoy, Derryberry, and then Dave Fenoy, and then
I was just rattling on and now I forgot. But hold on. You know what? I will read it out. Patrick Seitz is one of them.
it's okay.
Um,
Could you I mean, later on, if you don't mind giving us a list of some of the people that you
I
admire?
have a list. I can send it to you right now, actually.
Yeah, yeah, please do. I think that's a great thing.
And
Who you studied with and who you recommend, and
I'll pull that up right now.
yeah. I know that, for voice actors, it's important for everybody. It's important to study, but one phenomena that we've noticed, because here at the studio we do music production courses, we do voiceover workshops, one of which you're teaching, a couple of you teaching, but we find that the voice actors of everybody that does workshops, the voice actors tend to be the most passionate about studying. And to me, it's a phenomena, because I was surprised, because the composers, it's such a complicated thing to compose and write music and sing and all those things. But if you look at the actual I guess the popularity and the intensity and the desire to study, voice actors top the list of people who want to continually study. Can you shed some light on that? Why is it that voice actors are all such study maniacs and want to take all these classes? Why?
Mhm. I got the answer.
You got it. Oh, amazing. What?
Trends are always changing in this market. Always. And you have to be on top of it, which is why it's so important to choose a coach who is in the industry, high up in the industry, and who has been doing it for years and continues to book. You do not want to learn from someone who booked maybe 10 years ago and doesn't book anymore. You need to learn from someone who's actively working in the industry today and continuously. And you can always look them up on IMDb if you want to pursue animation voiceover and video game voiceover. Those are easy credits to find online. So you just pull up IMDb. If someone is offering coaching, look them up on IMDb. If it's, for specifically for animation and video game
Yeah.
and web series and all that, look them up. When was the last time they booked?
Right. Yeah.
How long have they even been in the industry?
Yeah.
And how often do they book each year? These are important questions. You want to learn from someone who actually knows how the industry works continuously.
I so agree with that. It's just like a musician who's not practicing, like a drummer said, I played that song 10 years ago, but I haven't touched my drum kit in 10 years. So,
Right.
I mean, they're going to be rusty. They're going to be rusty.
You don't want to learn from someone who's rusty.
No, I agree. I feel like you want to learn from somebody who's practicing every day. Auditioning, I mean, not everybody is as
booking, you want to make sure that you're learning from someone who knows how to book.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a great point. And so, while we're on that, how do you book? That's a huge question, I know, but forgive me.
Audition techniques. There's a lot of different audition techniques that I've learned from many of my voiceover coaches.
Okay.
The long list of voiceover coaches that I've studied with. And it has helped me to book. And honestly, I would rather teach those techniques in a class rather than a live stream because it's a lot. I have a whole curriculum that I've worked on, ways to book auditions. And so feel free to take my class.
I'm glad. You know what? That's the way we should frame your class, ways to book your auditions. I mean, because I think that at the end of the day becomes the target for everybody, right?
And you need to know how to stand out too, because this industry is growing exponentially. And so you need to know how to stand out to a casting director, because you got to remember, you got to put yourself in their shoes. They have had a long day. They are listening to hundreds upon hundreds of auditions.
Yeah.
And all of them are following the specs, the audition specs. All right. So they all kind of sound the same. Some of them sound the same, and it's just like, imagine going through hundreds and hundreds of audio files that just sound similar.
Oh, I do it already.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to know how to set yourself apart from that crowd and stand out to that director.
Okay.
And you can learn that from training with people who know how to do it.
Okay. Now, we're not going to get too deep into that because that's part of the class that you're going to teach, but just to give people a little taste of that, just some, few nuggets, like what would you say would be like the starting point? What's the starting point to get heard?
Okay.
Audition?
Well, I would hope that your audition gets heard, although there is sometimes where casting directors, they get tired of listening to all the auditions and then they're like, okay, let's just go with these guys. So I would hope that your audition gets heard, But one technique is called pre-life, and pre-life is somewhat of ad-libbing. That's a good word for it, ad-libbing, where it could be a chuckle that you add. It's not scripted. You just add it to add a little life to your performance, set yourself apart from the other people that don't think to do that. Pre-life is when you kind of add a little bit of ad-libbing in the beginning to set yourself up for the scene, to set yourself up as the character in that scene for that particular line, adding pre-life. It could be a little chuckle in the beginning. Maybe it's, it's not scripted, but you decided, oh, that fits the character. I'm going to do that. There was one time I got a callback for a huge title, just because I ad-libbed. Just because it was a character that was supposed to be overdramatic, very overdramatic. And so I said something that was not scripted. There was supposed to be a pause where she picks up the phone. And it's just, she's supposed to say, hold on one sec, hang on a sec. Pause, picks up the phone and says, hello. So I decided, well, she's overdramatic. I am going to make her out to be a bit of a theater kid or something. Yeah. So what I did was I said the line, I said, hold on a sec. I said, hold on a sec. I went with the line and then said, pause for dramatic effect. Hello? I just completely went off the rails. I added a line. I ad-libbed the clearing of the throat. And then instead of just saying, hello, I just went all out and just went dramatic with it. Hello? And they said that was what made them choose my my audition was because of that ad-libbing. It made the character stand out. It added on to the character.
Right.
And it was fun too. It was a lot of fun voicing for an overdramatic character. But yeah, that will doing things like that, ad-libbing and adding pre-life to your reads will help you stand out from the crowd.
Wow. That is, that's the first time I've ever heard that, and that's actually amazing advice. I'm just grabbing mosquitoes, the door's open. So, yes, that is the best advice I've heard actually in a long, long time from people.
Cool.
And what? Everybody tries to toe the line, right? And it's hard to like get outside of the box
Mhm.
with everything. So, I mean, that's fantastic advice from Morgan. Let's see if we got any other questions here. Any questions, guys? Questions in chat? 1 second. Where do you get your inspiration from?
Oh, okay. I just love acting.
Mhm.
So I'll admit I don't really have an inspiration for being in show business. I don't have an inspiration for uh, the art itself inspires me, and
Okay.
the content itself continues to move me. But I wouldn't say that one thing in particular inspired me to start living this as my career. But I do have a few favorite actors who kind of put the fire in me and just, their performance makes me so happy. One of them being Ian Sinclair. Oh,
Listen,
he's a phenomenal performer. Phenomenal. Everything he does, it's magic.
is
And
this
so he's definitely one of those performers that I'm just like, yes, yes, he is having fun with the role. He makes the role lovable. Oh gosh, his character in Black Clover. When I watched that anime in Japanese, I hated his character. Hated it. I was like, oh, I don't like this guy. But then I watched it in dub because I watch both sub and dub. And so
okay?
when I watched the dub for Black Clover and I heard his character speak, and I was just like, he makes me like him. He makes me like that character that I hated
Hmm.
because his performance was so fun. And you can tell he's having fun behind that mic. His performance is always phenomenal. Great actor. There's a reason he books a lot, And I honestly, I want to see him booking more. I love him. So yeah, I would say he's definitely an inspiration as I continue to be in this industry because I just love his work.
And your analysis, I'm just curious, your analysis, why does he book? Or why will he book more? And what is it? Say he's having fun, fun behind the mic, but more specifically, what is it that makes
Hard
you?
to break it down. That's the thing. It's hard to break it down, especially for anime, because with anime, we do have to fit the animated mouth flaps. So eh, acting is a little different for anime than it is for prelay or video games without mouth flaps.
Yeah.
But for Ian, number one, you can tell that he's having fun with the role.
Right.
And art is subjective, everyone is entitled to their own opinions of whether someone's acting is good or not. Art is subjective. But with Ian, with his acting, it feels real to me. His performance is always believable and it's fun to listen to. I specifically love people's reads. That's what I focus on. Is it a creative read? Something that I wouldn't have thought of in the booth. So his reads are very the inflection, the musicality.
Hmm.
It's so fun and creative. I,
Wow.
that's the only way I know how to describe it. His reads are just superb.
Wow. I mean, that's blowing my mind. So I have to think that through. So and the musicality thing, which appeals to me as a musician, I think that's right because you're right. Sometimes voice actors, I go like they're just musical, right? My good friend is Steve Bloom, and when I get together with Steve, we always whip out the guitars and start jamming and hanging out. And he's a great musician. He's very musical and his timing and I was like, well, I guess that makes sense, right? It makes sense as a voice actor to have that kind of timing and sense of pitch and timing and
It
music.
helps to be musical, to be musically inclined. It definitely helps.
Yeah, I think a lot of musicians, but as you as well as singer, and I mean, a lot of they kind of cross pollinate, or not cross pollinate. They kind of work in tandem together, right? Being a musician helps you being a voice actor. And I'd love to explore that a little bit with you too. Does
Yes.
does the music help you, or how does it help you? We know it helps you. How does
Well,
it help?
one way it helps me is breath support. I've definitely been trained to have better breath support over the years, to hold my breath out longer when needed.
Yeah,
When laughing, for when you're acting laughing,
yeah,
it takes a lot of breath out of you.
yeah,
So it's definitely being in choir helped me develop a good breath support for laughing takes, and especially the maniacal laughter. That would have been extremely difficult for me if it hadn't have been for my training in choir all those years ago. That's definitely helped me a ton. And as well as musicality, if
right.
a director has a certain read he wants, sometimes he'll give you a line read, which a lot of people don't like line reads. I'm actually okay with line reads. It doesn't really bug me, you know. What they want, they want. You know, I'll
If
do it.
if you kind of extrapolate the line read, some people are still new to the
So
game. What is a line read?
right. A line read is when someone reads the line for you because they want you to read it in that exact way. So, and here's the thing, a lot of the times when someone gives you a line read, I remember I was doing an audiobook once, and the guy who was directing me, he was not an actor and
But
he was not a director. He was a musician with no acting experience and no directing experience. So
yeah,
when he gave me a line read, it was monotone. And so I was like, I got a little sassy, I'll admit. I was like,
mhm,
oh, you want me to read it just like that, huh? Okay. And so I did. I did it monotone. And he goes, no, not like. And I said, then don't give me a line read if you can't do it properly. Like, sorry, I'm gonna be real. He was there because he owned the studio. That's the problem. He had no experience as an actor or director, and so he didn't know how to properly direct the actors.
yeah,
And so he was directing because he owned the studio, and the client didn't want to hire a separate director to direct us because he was cheap. So he was like, all right, you just do all the directing. And so this guy, oh my gosh, I could go on and on about this session. Oh my gosh, you know what? I'm gonna. He gave us like a oh my gosh, starting with scheduling, he
yeah.
scheduled three actors to be there at the same time.
Whoa.
Like,
Okay.
yeah, here's the thing. Normally for voiceover, we record separately. This, when it comes to like anime, like if you have a named role in anime, it's just you, the director, and the sound engineer. It's not a bunch of actors in a booth together unless it's a Walla session, but that's a whole nother thing. This isn't a prelay session. This was just an audiobook session. So we should have been, we should have had separate times to come in and record our own lines.
Right.
They scheduled, we showed up there like 10 a.m. and it was early. I had to drive through traffic. I woke up early for this session thinking I would be able to just go on in, do my thing, and leave. I was tired. I'm not a morning person. Remember, I'm not a morning person. I get
Yeah.
there and I see another voiceover friend and then a dude I had never met.
Mhm.
So three people, including me. And then they were like, all right, let's bring back so and so. They brought back the dude, and me and my friend were like, are we just expected to wait here until his session is over?
Yeah.
We were like, what? Why didn't they call us in later then? Like, it was so weird. And then they brought me and her back together, and they said it would take only 2 hours. It ended up taking 5 hours. So they didn't add a schedule. And the director they didn't give us scripts. They gave me a broken laptop, like a laptop with a broken trackpad that I had to navigate to find the different chapters of
Yeah.
the audiobook I was reading from. So I was just like, okay. And sometimes it would take me longer to scroll on the broken trackpad to find the next page. And then when it took too long for me to find it, that's when he would start reading the line as if I didn't see it, because I can't. I'm still scrolling. He was reading it as if I was an idiot. He was like starting to read the lines with a very very monotone voice, as if that would help me find it on screen. It's like, no, just tell me where the page is and I'll find it. You don't have to read it for me. I'm literally still scrolling. Like, golly, it was so annoying. And I was just like, and then like, of course, I would have to wait because the other actress was reading her lines at some point. We were not in the same scenes, mind you. We were
Oh,
not in the same
we
scene,
just put you all at the same time, right? Okay.
but
Yeah.
we were scheduled at the same time. Yep. So sometimes I would sit down for 30 minutes while she's doing her thing, and I'm like, why am I here? I could have been brought in another day. Like, oh, it made no sense. So scheduling was stupid. And oh my gosh. And then once I was actually, the client asked me for my business card, right? And my business card had a picture of my face on it. So it was just, my info and my face. I gave it to her because she asked for it. This guy, the same guy that has been directing us this entire time, he leans down and he goes, he looks at it. He looks at my business card and he goes, huh, have you lost weight?
Oh,
I
oh,
was like, you really think it's appropriate to comment on someone's weight?
oh, ouch, ouch.
Really, sir? Really, sir?
Yeah.
So I'm getting a little sassy tonight, but that was the worst experience. And that's what happens when you are working with a director that doesn't know what they're doing.
Mhm.
Now, that's an example of someone who gives you a line read and doesn't do it well. But
Mhm.
I've been in sessions where I've had a director who, he was particular, and that's why he gave a line read. He knows what he wants, but he actually delivers it well. So in that case, I'm fine. I'm fine with line reads as long as they do it well and know what they're doing. So yeah, that's what a line read is, when the director reads a line for the actor because they have a particular way they want it read. Where was I going with this? Where was I?
We were oh, I've lost. you derailed me as well. I'm kind of like, I'm not sure where I am right now. But what I do want to ask you is, like, what's a good director then? Like, how do you know when you're in the room with a good director?
A director that knows the source material and will educate you on the character, their backstory, what's
Yeah.
going on in this particular scene, what they want from you. A good director will know the details of the scene. They will say, all right, so for this scene, we need you to raise your voice because there's the elements, you have to be aware of the elements that are going on around you as a character. And a good director will know that. They'll say, all right, so you need to raise your voice for this scene because there's rocks falling all around you, there's gunshots, so really raise your voice for this. You're speaking across the grounds to your buddy on the other side, really project your voice. All right, go. And then there's other moments when a director needs to know, like, okay, so in this scene, you're talking through an earpiece, so don't shout, you're whispering. This is a stealth mission. Like, you need a director that knows what's going on in the scene. There have been some projects that I watched in the end of it all, like a video game in particular I'm thinking of, where I watched the final cut. I watched some people play the game, and none of the voiceover matched the scenes.
Wow.
The volume that they put out wasn't matching the scene. There were moments where the actor should have projected, but they didn't, and moments when they, shouldn't have projected, but they did. There was a lot of inconsistencies with the scenes. So a good director will know what's up. A good director will tell you exactly what you need in each and every scene and tell you why
Hmm.
you need to do it that way, because it helps to know. Yeah.
Your favorite director?
Huh?
Your favorite director?
Favorite director? Oh, I do have a few. Okay. My first lead role was in an anime show called Riddle Story of Devil, and that was directed by Caitlin Glass. She is definitely one of my favorites. And then there's Mike McFarland. He's another favorite. Um, I think after I started getting work in LA, I think another favorite quickly became Alex Von David.
Hmm.
And I don't want to put a number to my favorites, but he's very high up there. I love him. He's very high on that list for me.
Okay.
My favorite, Alex Von David, such a great director.
Can you tell us why?
They're all such good directors. But I'll leave it at that top three. There's Alex Von David, Caitlin Glass, and Mike McFarland.
And then what? I mean, I know it's another tough question, but what what I know separates Alex from the crowd, like from everybody else, and what makes him that, like, just the perfect or the greatest director or one of the best directors you work with, rather? What is it? Is it
You know,
his
no,
personality, or what is it?
there is a thought that comes to mind when you ask that, but not to say that the other ones don't embody this as well.
Yeah.
It's just that it's very evident with Alex. He cares about every detail. He's not the kind of director that'll brush something off. He he cares about those reactions. In anime, there's a lot of reacts, a lot, like the gasps, like and just there's so like even little mm, like little noises you make when you do a head nod. Anime has a lot of noises here and there, whether it's big or small, they're there. A lot of reactions. And the thing is, he cares about them. Sometimes we'll do a reaction like you would think that someone would just say, "Oh, it's just a react. It's small. Nah, that works for me. Let's brush that off and move on to the next thing." But he actually cares. He's very particular. He he's like, "Oh, you know what? That gasp, it just wasn't big enough. I felt like this instead of feeling like this. I want to feel like this. I want you to embody this. Try it again." And then we do it and he's like, "There it is. Perfect. Perfect. Let's move on." He actually cares even about the little reactions that some people just brush off. And I
Wow.
like that. I admire that.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Wow. Well, we've covered so much. I can't believe it's only an hour. We've covered so much material. I want to talk a little bit about the workshop that you're going to be doing with us at Strawberry Hill. And you're going to be teaching people, I mean, obviously how to book, which is a super crucial element. What else? What else can they expect from the workshop coming up?
Well, it's a lot. I mean, I have a whole curriculum planned. So I think to break it down, I want to educate beginner voice actors.
Mhm.
This is more of a beginner class for people who want to get into anime and video games. And because that's what I specialize in. And it's important to learn from someone who specializes in the genre you want to pursue. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's what I want to focus on. It's very important to me that they're learning from someone who actually books in those areas that they want to book. And so we're going to focus on audition techniques, how to stand out, how to make your performances believable. And I'm going to drop some knowledge nuggets about this industry and how it works, because people have a lot of incorrect assumptions about how this industry works. And I am here to show them, no, 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 no. Here's how it actually works. I want to help them thrive in this industry, and I want to prevent them from shooting themselves in the foot before it's even in the door. You know what I mean? Because that happens a lot. I know of a few beginner voice actors who have already ruined their careers because of little things that they did. And I want to help you all, anyone who plans on taking my class, I want to prevent you guys from shooting yourselves in the foot before it's even in the door. Like, I'm going to help you, or I'm going to do my best to help bring you up in the industry and teach you how it works from my experience, from my personal experience.
Great. Morgan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We really, really appreciate it. And
No problem.
yeah, and I'm looking forward to your class, and I know that a lot of other people are. Do we have any other questions, last minute questions? I don't think we've got anything. We just have your class information here on the chat room, and we look forward to seeing you soon in class. Thank you so much, Morgan. It's been awesome.
Much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care. Have a great night. Take care. Bye bye.